Time. Lovely to see you all. So our host tonight is Nizam. Nizam, take it away.
Hey, yeah, filling in for Emmett tonight, who may be here, but is not feeling so great. So he asked me just to introduce tonight. And I also offered the topic for tonight too, so it makes sense. Gosh, I forget all the important things that Emmett says. Home is this beautiful, wonderful place that we get to all come and listen to topics of interest to our daily lives through a mix of mostly Buddhism, but we all know Phuntsok also invented New Ageism and all kinds of other beautiful philosophies. So he brings those into the mix as well. And yeah, just the beauty of Phuntsok's being. And it's a donation-based sit. And so I actually don't have it, but maybe at some point during this talk, I will put the chat Phuntsok's Patreon to donate, or even his Venmo if you want to make a one-time donation. And on his Patreon, there are all these talks are recorded and there for your access to. So please check that out. It's a wonderful resource. So tonight's talk is, I guess, something that's been running around in my brain. In Buddhism, they have these things called the 5 aggregates. And they are 5 things that we use to point at what we are not in Buddhism. And please, Phuntsok, obviously correct anything I say, because I'm not 100% on all this, but my understanding is that, we have this sense, just to kind of use opposites, that reality is permanent, dependent, or independent, and full of meaning. And a lot of what contributes to that idea are these 5 aggregates that we associate with our self and who we identify as. And those 5 aggregates, just to name them, are the body, feelings and sensations, perceptions, mental formations, and consciousness. And when we take a really deep look at all those things, we say like, oh, I'm this body, or I'm these feelings, I'm these perceptions. They kind of don't withstand deep analytical inquiry and actually result in a more fundamental understanding of reality, which is impermanent, interdependent, and fundamentally empty of meaning. And I've been curious because we use the body, which is one of these things that we are not, as a really important access to our true nature. And so potentially that happens with our other things, like our feelings, our consciousness, our perceptions. And I'm curious what Buddhism and Phuntsok has to say about why we go to these things that we are supposedly not as a way of accessing our true nature, or what our more fundamental nature is. And with that, I pass it over to Phuntsok, and yeah, please correct any misunderstandings or misspeakings that I have said.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Nizam. You did a very nice job. This was Nizam's first time hosting and in doing the introduction. Did a nice job. Did you rehearse that? I'm very glad that you asked this question, and this is now the topic that we're going to be talking about. When one first encounters Buddhism, eventually you encounter this list of things called the 5 aggregates. When you first encounter them, there's a bit of excitement because it seems like it's going to take you to somewhere meaningful, somewhere that this knowledge, this list of things that I'm about to understand is going to help me a lot. But unfortunately, probably because of the passage of time And because we're using language and vocabulary that may have a lot of meaning for people in the past when it was first introduced, but we're not so used to this list, especially the term aggregate, for example. Maybe you might, when we use the term aggregate, you probably think of math and you probably think of algorithms and things like that. Things are somewhat abstract. So we have a sense of the 5 aggregates, even though what they're talking about us and our experiences. It seems that they're talking about something abstract, and eventually this beautiful sense of wonderment you had when you were first introduced them, eventually it dies down. And when you hear the term aggregates again, you say, oh God, aggregates again. But eventually on your journey, you find out, wait a minute, that thing, when did I learn that again? Those 5 aggregates. You have to learn that as you make progress, as you go further along the path, you have to go back to them because they're fundamental to gaining true understanding. So I'm glad that this question was asked, so I can talk about the 5 aggregates because I like talking about them, and I can talk about them without forcing them upon you. So as soon as you hear 5 aggregates, you don't go, oh, he's talking about 5 aggregates. Oh my God, yeah. Okay. All right. One other place that we encounter the 5 aggregates is in this incredible sutra, which is supposed to be the sutra that explains reality in the most direct way. That's where the 5 aggregates are taken up again. So that sort of gives you a hint, an idea as to what are we supposed to be doing to get to reality. The 5 aggregates, that's our basis, that's our foundation. That's what we are supposed to be working with. That's what we're supposed to use to get to reality. Okay. And the way Nizam phrased the question is very interesting because when you're introduced to the 5 aggregates, you're told, this is what you're thinking you are, this is what you're identifying as these things. Okay. But we're going to dive into that. Okay. All right. So we're going to begin with meditation and then dive into a talk about aggregates and open the floor for questions, discussions, and then we'll close again with a meditation. All right. So let's begin with me setting the timer that I'm going to ignore. Oh my goodness, look at all this white around me. Okay. All right. Set this. Da, 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 boom, boom, boom. Okay. So begin with the intention, deliberate intention, conscious intention that you're going to meditate. And in that split second of intention that I'm stretching, you have in your mind an understanding of what is meditation. And the simplest way of understanding it is a process of accessing and abiding in ever subtle levels of consciousness. And that's the practical aspect. That's what we are doing. As to why we are doing this, that's your motivation. Why would you like to access ever subtle levels of consciousness? Because there's aspects of our lives that we wish to transform, and this will provide us the means to bring about these kinds of transformation, but in a very meaningful and lasting way. So the more subtle the consciousness we access, the more powerful means we have at our disposal to bring about these transformations. So what transformation is meaningful to you right now, bring that to mind. That's why you're accessing these levels of consciousness. And as you hold these two in mind, the understanding of what you're doing and why you're doing it, let that be communicated to your body, one of the aggregates. Let that be communicated to your body and allow the intelligence in the body to communicate back, to respond, and watch it respond in a way that is cooperative. How do you know that? You feel from the body impulses to make adjustments, adjustments so you can be comfortable. So when you have these impulses, apply them with mindfulness, understanding that this is a cooperation that is taking place. So make the adjustments. The body is seeking stability as well as comfort. So look for that in the posture. As you scan the body up and down, legs to head, head to legs, making minor adjustments here, minor adjustments there, major adjustments here, maybe. So you can touch stability, so you can touch comfort. And as you touch stability, there's a calm arising slowly. Congratulate yourself, welcome that calmness. And simultaneous with that calmness, there might be a pleasant sensation, another of the aggregates eventually. So be aware of that nice, pleasant sensation. It may not be some grand, overwhelming joy, just some pleasant sensation. Be aware of it, welcome it, be aware of it. As you scan the legs, listen to that intelligence guiding you. Relax here, relax there, let go of here, let go of there. Bring awareness to the hips and the torso. Listen to that intelligence guiding you. Let go here, let go there. Feel the uprightness in the spine. Make sure it's comfortable at the same time. Contact that calmness, contact that pleasantness, rejoice. Bring awareness to your arms and hands, the shoulders. Let them be even, let them go. No need to controlling them, no need to control them, no need to hold them in place. That intelligence will guide you. And as you make contact with pleasantness, with calmness in the arms and the shoulders, rejoice. This calmness, this pleasantness are signs that you are already entering and accessing and abiding in subtle levels of consciousness. And those are signs, the indicators. The more subtle, the more pleasant, the more calm the experience will be. Check the head and neck, make sure that they're centered, so there's no conscious effort in holding them in place. Mouth, teeth, tongue resting in their natural places. Eyes resting softly. And think of yourself as though on a bridge about to fully commit yourself to enter into that space, qualified by a deeper sense of calm, a greater sense of joy, and other signs that may already are starting to arise. And the way we commit ourselves to fully enter, make a last check of the body in its stability and comfort, last adjustments. And we commit to fully enter, to cross the bridge with a nice full breath. In through the nose, gently, fully breathe in. Hold for a second or two, and then completely release through the mouth. And as you release, let go, let go, let go, let go, let go, let go in the body, let go in the breath, let go in the mind, keep letting go, keep letting go, keep letting go. And as you continue to let go, let go, let go, feel that momentum of letting go, letting go, letting go, leave the breath alone, just let go, stay in that momentum of letting go, letting go. Notice the signs enhancing, notice the calm becoming calmer, the pleasantness becoming more pleasant. Notice the other signs arising, the inner sensations pointing to clarity, pointing to natural radiance, pointing to focus. Enjoy them, rejoice in their presence, welcome them, let go, let go, let go, let go, let go, let go, leave the breath alone, keep letting go, stay in that momentum of letting go, letting go, letting go. Now stabilize yourself in that space of calm and pleasantness, a bit deeper, a bit more profound now. Just recognize them to whatever degree that they're there, to whatever degree that they're present, rejoice in their presence, celebrate their presence. And notice there's a slight sensation that is very fleeting and yet very authoritative. It gives you a sense that I am in the meditative state. And yet, perhaps it may not stay long. It may not even have lasted more than a fraction of a second. And yet, the memory of it is very vivid, a sense of I am touching something deep, something profound. Even if it's just the memory of it, go to the memory of it and let yourself dissolve into that memory and begin to feel the signature of your meditation. Perhaps for you, it's the sense of sound. Perhaps for you, it's more in the sense of touch. Perhaps for you, the sense of seeing, whatever it is that is giving you a palpable sense of it. Perhaps it feels energetic, it feels peaceful. In whatever way, stay connected to it, stay aware of it. If it's gone, remember it. That's how you stay connected. Now let's stabilize and deepen with 3 more full breaths. Through the nose, gently breathe in, staying connected. And then again through the mouth, completely release. And as you release in the body, release in the mind, release in the breath, letting go, letting go, letting go, allowing the breath to reach its end all by itself and allow it to come back by itself. Stay where it took you, and then another deep breath in through the nose. And again through the mouth, breathe out. Notice the signs getting stronger. Again through the nose, another deep breath. Breathe in. And through the mouth, let go. And let go, let go, let go. Feel the momentum of letting go. Feel the momentum of going deeper and deeper. Stay with it, letting go, staying connected to the sensations arising, and then leave the breath alone now. Just stay connected to the sensations. If it's through the sense of hearing that it is making itself present, stay hearing it. If it's through the sense of seeing, stay seeing it. If it's through the sense of touch, keep feeling it. And gently raise your attention to the level of your eyebrows, as though there's a window between the eyebrows and you're looking through. Looking through that window, and there's a bright presence. It is your potential calling you, protecting you, guiding you. Sometimes it's clear, sometimes it's vague, but its presence is nonetheless authoritative. Feel that presence. Feel its light radiating on you. You've already made your sincere invocation through your sincere aspirations. And just let yourself be open to whatever inspiration will come from that direction. Staying connected to the signs, rejoicing, having deep respect for yourself, for this process, for this potential. Feel the deepening of the signs as you feel deep respect, deep trust. Stay connected to the signs as you express deep gratitude. Trusting the sincerity of your aspiration, that it has connected you to the right resources. Trust that presence as being a response to your aspiration. And just surrender, open your heart, open your mind to whatever it is that you will need. In the last minutes, and few minutes, just stay in that sense of trusting the sincerity of your aspirations, that they have connected you with this presence at the level of your eyebrow, this radiant presence, and now it is helping you fulfill the objective of your aspiration. Just stay with that trust. As you continue to allow yourself to go deeper into the meditation. Get ready to arise from the meditation. At first, take a quick survey of the space that you have entered into, inner space. Look at the measure of calm, rejoice. Look at the measure of pleasantness, enjoy, rejoice. And through the inner sensations, whether it's tactile, whether it's hearing, whether it's a combination, notice the depth of the clarity of them, the brilliance, the vividness of them. And that's clarity and radiance. And witnessing them, rejoice, knowing with confidence you are in the meditative state. And only when you are in the meditative state can you arise from the meditative state. So with that joyful acknowledgement that you are in the meditative state, make the intention to arise. Allow your mind to be open. And with a nice breath that you feel in here, take yourself out. In through the nose, breathe in. Through the mouth, breathe out. And deliberately, consciously reconnect with your immediate surroundings, reconnect with your sense of touch, feeling the temperature again, feeling the clothing on you, feeling the cushion, hearing the different sounds, and deliberately let your eyes take in light, see colors and shapes. Okay. All right. And before I even go into listing the 5 aggregates, that term itself probably is a bit foreign to some of you. It's a very fundamental term, and it's basically what is before you go into trying to remember the list, what's in the list of the 5 aggregates. The term aggregate itself, it's exactly what it means. It means a bunch of stuff. Okay, a bunch of stuff. And what are these bunch of stuff? It's basically your experience. What makes up your experience and the experiences that you're having? That's what they're referring to. That's what the aggregates are referring to. And why are these being pointed to? In almost every as you could say, philosophical school, you could say there is a list of, or these are the components of a being. And some of them are things that you can recognize, and sometimes there are things that you're supposed to take on faith. But the 5 aggregates, the list that we refer to as the 5 aggregates, is that when you're having an experience, what exactly is present in that experience? What is there? What are you witnessing? What are you experiencing? So from the very beginning, the list is not so much a list like you are remembering a list, like you're about to, I don't know, go to the grocery store or something and pick up a list of things you're supposed to pick up, or a list of ingredients for a recipe, or even a list of things you're supposed to remember so that you will pass a test the list will have no meaning for you whatsoever after you've taken the test. But rather, it is what it's asking us to do is to be constantly aware of our experiences and exactly what are the components of the experience. That's what the list is about. Then the reason that it is given 5 categories, 5 aggregates, is not to say that there are only 5 things that you can, where your experience can be categorized into, but rather you could say that's a general starting point. Start with this general starting point, this 5. And the reason for these 5s are singled out of all the different things that make up experience is because of the importance of these specific 5s. Actually, one of them, the list, and they're always given in a particular order. One of them is really, oh, what else did I miss? Imagine somebody's giving you a list of what your experiences are, and then say, okay, there's this, there's that, there's this, there's that, and then say, oh, what did I forget? Say, yeah, okay, that list, everything else. Everything else that's part of your experience that is not what I've just immediately listed, okay, it's in that list, it's in that bucket. The term that the Tibetan use, the term skandha in Sanskrit, and the term that the Tibetan use, umbo, it means a heap, a pile of things, okay? So by saying these 5 things each are piles of things, that means every experience is complex. There are many things that come together to create that experience. And that's one of the almost like immediate thing that we're supposed to understand from this. That whenever we are having an experience and it seems to be overwhelming or it seems to be underwhelming, it's because of the perspective that we are taking on this experience. The way consciousness works, it can have these kinds of macro perspective and micro perspectives. And when it's having a macro perspective, it might be underwhelming or overwhelming. When it's having a micro perspective, depending on what works into overwhelming or underwhelming the personality. So that person might get stuck on this macro, the overwhelming experience or the underwhelming experience. And the reason for pointing out these compilations, these heap of things that make up an experience, is to tell us, A, be mindful. Be aware of what's going on. Be aware of what's going on internally. Be aware of what you're perceiving as what you're taking in as your environment. All these things are working together to create an experience. Some of these components are more important than the other, or may play a greater emphasis in how you're having the experience. But the experience that you're having is not some one thing. It is a coming together of many things. Experiences are complex. And probably the reason that there's this sort of evolutionary, I would say, conditioning where we somehow, for some reason, we are afraid of complexity. And because of this fear of complexity, because complexity, the immediate thing that we think about, the immediate kind of experience that we have, reaction that we have to when we think of complexity, is that we might experience bewilderment, and because of this bewilderment, we might get lost, and we may end up having experiences that we do not want to have. So it's so you could say evolution had a good intention to guide us to develop this kind of conditioning. It was for our own good, or what it believed to be for our own good. That's why we developed this kind of reaction towards complexity, because complexity means confusion, means not able to, the possibility of not fulfilling what we want to fulfill. Okay, so we are afraid of complexity. So because of that, we fixate on the idea that when we are experiencing something, it is a thing. And it is precisely because it is not a thing, and then we are relating towards it as if it is a thing, there is a disconnect. And because of the disconnect, there is a confusion that we do not wish to experience, and yet here we are, we're experiencing it. So there's a discomfort and that this discomfort can go from slight discomfort to, extreme suffering because of what we are imposing on the experience and what the experience is. There's a disconnect. They're not in agreement with one another. And this clash is creating our experience, a further experience of at least discomfort. Okay. And strangely enough, in order to avoid this discomfort, we seek another simplicity. A simplicity in the sense of we seek something that is truly a one thing. And we're perpetually looking for this one thing. And when we believe we have found it, that's when we have a sense of resting. But unfortunately, there is no such thing as a one thing. It's always a complexity of things. So we end up perpetuating the cycle where we are constantly running from experiences. And this cycle, this habit of constantly running from experiences, this is where we have found ourselves. And to help us at least begin to have some sense of grounding where we are not in constant flight. And this is exhausting, to be in constant flight from reality, constant flight from what is actually there. So to begin the grounding, the complexity of experiences is sort of summarized into, look, you can handle 5, right? Forget uncountable numbers. Can you handle 5? Okay, oh yeah, I can handle 5. Okay, good. Now that I have your attention, okay, let's sort of summarize your experience, see if they can fit into any of these 5. And in a way, they all fit in these 5 categories. What Nizam presented about the body, for example, here we are in this flight, constant state of flight, and yet to make ourselves arrive at a place of rest, which is what, and the seeking of rest is, in a sense, seeking our fundamental nature, somewhere deep, 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 and even deeper than that. There's a remembrance of our fundamental state being at peace, and we are seeking it. But unfortunately, we are seeking it outside of the very experience of ourselves. We are seeking it outside of these 5 things. So when we bring ourselves to sort of categorize, fit into these 5 categories, these 5, sort of summarize our experience to these 5 categories, we are bringing ourselves back into this very experience of being who we are. We begin, but it's not to establish this is who I am per se, but rather what exactly is present? What exactly is present? So there will be 2 things. There will be the idea that I have, and then this idea that I have about reality, which is I believe to be absolutely real, is creating an experience within me where I feel propelled to run, seeking peace, running, seeking peace. Okay, it's good that you're seeking peace, but unfortunately, the peace we are seeking is not outside these 5 aggregates. It's not outside the observation. It's not outside the experience of these 5 aggregates, these 5 parts of your being, these 5 sort of summary of what makes you up, of what makes up your experience. Okay. And when we are running away from them, also at the same time, like for example, I am my body, without even understanding what we are saying when we say I am my body. I am my consciousness. I am my awareness. I am my feelings. I am this personality, that personality. When we say it, we don't really understand what is it that we are saying. So we create this fantasy about what the body is. We create this fantasy, this abstract of what feelings are. And we are speaking of them, I am that, I am this feeling, I am that feeling, but without really looking at what is it that what is it that makes me say feeling? What is it that makes me say body? What is actually happening that makes me say body, that makes me say feeling, that makes me say awareness, consciousness, and all these kinds of things? That makes me say time, that makes me say location, that makes me say energy. What is actually taking place that makes me say that? We don't really look at that. So we are always constantly running away. And we have a sense also, without verifying it, that it's either this body that I don't really take time to look at, that's me, this feeling, which I don't really take a time to look at, that's me, or whatever, which are the components, or even something outside of that, outside of these things. And in saying, I am this, I am that, we don't really understand what is it that what is it that is this? What is it? What is an I? What is I? What is I? What is that phenomena called I? What is it? Okay. Either we say this I, this me is one of these things that we really don't. And the only reason we say I am this body, I am this feeling is because we didn't really sit down to look at the feeling. We look at the body. Or we make a different kind of a assumption. The I is the owner of these things. It's using these things without really looking at these things, without really looking at the I. So what is the experience taking place that is actually taking place? So, and let's begin with right here, right now, that you have a sense of there's me, there's Phuntsok. Is there something wrong with that? No, there's nothing at this level. There's nothing wrong with it. It is the abstract. It is the what we superimpose upon Phuntsok, upon me. That's where we get into trouble. And the only reason that we superimpose these ideas of what Phuntsok is supposed to be is because I'm not really looking at the experience that makes me say I. Okay. And we may fall into an experience where we might scare ourselves. And the reason that we might scare or terrify ourselves is because we are, through habituation, without really knowing who I am, but we have created an image of what this I is supposed to be. And when we look at actual experience that comprises I, and we are starting to not see anything to validate what we thought was the I, then we begin to be terrified. And that's a very good sign, by the way. And the reason for being terrified is because for all these times, what we thought was real, we are directly discovering it is not real. And we are terrified because we don't have any other thing to latch onto as real. And we feel that we are losing grip of reality. But what's actually happening, we are for the first time encountering reality. But because we have been running away from it for so long, it is completely alien to us. Here we are finally coming face to face with reality, and it's terrifying us because we've distanced ourselves from it for so long. It's like a child who's been separated from their parent for so long that they completely forget what the parent looks like, and the parent is approaching them, and they can't recognize the parent, and they think that they might be this person is approaching them, running at them with such familiarity might be a danger. Okay, so there might be this initial fear, okay, because of this unfamiliarity. But this fear is telling us this wonderful news that it means that there is some sense of letting go of what we were grasping onto, the fantasy that we were grasping onto, the fantasy that caused us to perpetually seek peace and not find it. And we are finally beginning to let it go. We are finally beginning to surrender to what is actually present. So what is actually present? So when I say Phuntsok, the first thing that is evident to me that I'm aware of is there is this thing that you could say is the physical body. I'm seeing colors, I'm seeing shape, I'm having a sense of weight, I'm having a sense of hearing, perceiving. So that's what's present. Now, what does that mean? And not only, so at first, because the mind is seeking, when the fantasy that it created about me, is that when I find me, it will be this permanent, it will be this unchangeable thing, because that's what I feel it is, even though our experience tells us different. And yet we have this fantasy that that's what I'm supposed to be. And the reason for creating this fantasy about me, about I, is because we want, there's this innate terror of going out of existence. There is this innate terror that we have that if we're not careful, maybe one day we will simply go out, be extinguished from existence. And we are terrified of experiencing that, and whatever that kind of experience could ever be. But for some reason, we are terrified of it. And because we are terrified of it, we wish that the I, the me that we will find will be something lasting, the way we understand lasting to be. Okay, like you buy something with lifetime guarantee, it means that it will never break for some reason. You can keep using it, it will remain exactly as it is. You may not even have to clean it. It will clean itself, okay? It will somehow perpetually be there, be reliable, okay? Lifetime guaranteed. So we form this fantasy about what the I is supposed to be based on fear. And all this is based on not taking the time to look at what is actually taking place. We create all these fantasies, we create all these layers on top of reality. And all we are, for a long time, all we are experiencing, we're not experiencing reality, we're experiencing our interpretations of reality, our fantasies of what reality is supposed to be. So at first, when we are just sitting down, or whatever it is that we are doing, we're sitting, we're walking, we just be aware of what actually is taking place. And I mentioned at first, because of this habit of wanting something that will last forever, that's what we fantasize me supposed to be. When we notice the body, immediately we say, oh, I am the body. And we want the body to last forever, rather than look at it for what it is. Okay. The body is not saying, I promise you to last forever if you recognize me as you. The body is not saying that, but we're expecting that from the body. But when we notice the body, because of our fantasies and expectation of the sense of I supposed to be permanent, when we notice change, we freak out. Because we already made up our minds when we find the I, it's not supposed to be changing. Because if it changes, we have this fantasy also that one day there will be annihilation. There will be annihilation of me. And we don't want to experience that. But because the body is so immediate to our experience, we find ourselves going back and forth between wanting everlasting, continuous, forever existence, and at the same time going into depression because we recognize that this body will not be able to do that. Okay, because now we believe that we have found the I, and it's the body. And when they say the body form, they don't just mean that means everything that we could consider to be that make up the biological sense of the body, but at the same time also what we consider to be, oh, that's material outside, and that's material connected to me, that's material connected to another person. All these are the other things that make up what we call the heap or the pile of stuff of biology. And the pile of stuff of biology, you have the senses, you have colors, you have shapes, you have all these things, everything connected to the senses, the five senses. That's part of what we refer to as the heap of things that make up the body, the collection of that makes up that thing that we call the body. Okay, so remember, there is the mind seeking one thing. So when you look at the body, you notice that it's not one thing. Okay, so when you are able to sit with it and you see that it's not one thing, it's many things, it's a complexity of things, right? Because of that, that helps us to undermine that fantasy that we were holding that the body is a thing. Or we have a more wiser understanding of the body, where it is a complex, it's a complexity. Okay, and we also experience that fear that we had about running away from complexity. We noticed that being aware of the complexity that makes up the body, we did not at that moment suddenly become annihilated. Our minds didn't blow up because of the complexity of the body. Okay. And we even found out that the mind can actually dive deep into the complexities of the body. It can spend many decades surveying, observing finding out the different complexities of the body. Like it seems like what we studied in biology when we were very young, and now there are more things that to be given out to even kids who are younger than us. They know more about the body because more things have been discovered about the body. Okay. So that's what we see when we think of me. There's the body. And what else is in that experience when we are thinking about me? Remember, the reason for this is to stop running away from what is actually taking place. That the peace that we're looking for, it will not be found away from actual experience, from the actual experience that we are having. And what is the first evident? What is the first experience that we have? Experience of form, experience of a body. So we just become aware of it without expecting it to behave a certain way, without expecting it to be anything that we just want it to be, but rather just seeing it for what it is. Not without suspending the superficial judgments of good and bad. Okay, just what's here. Oh, okay, there's this body. Sometimes comfortable, sometimes uncomfortable, sometimes flexible here, but definitely not flexible in like this, having this kind of thing, and just whatever is going on that tells you this is body, this is body, this is body. And yet at the same time also recognize it is a complexity. It's not a thing. Okay. And you may also find, and it's key for us to, as we are simply observing body, for us to also notice the habit of looking for one thing. You may find accompanying the observation of, okay, this is the experience of what I'm calling body. There's simultaneously going on observation of complexity. And at the same time, notice there is a part of us, because of habit, looking for a thing. Okay? At first, there's no need to chase away that part. It's like the example of a child who's afraid of the monster in the closet. And if the child is now ready, and the child has a sense of safety because you're with the child, then you and the child can go to the closet together. And by directly pointing to the closet, not having any monsters, the idea of there being a monster, or the conviction that there being a monster in the closet, goes away because they're directly perceiving there's no monster there. So in the same way, that sense of us that's looking for a thing, that's the body, you don't chastise it, you don't blame it for anything. You just take its hand and look, what are you seeing? And say, oh, okay, complexity, oh, complexity, oh, complexity. And then the sense, the idea, or the grasping onto one thing gradually goes away. And what else is going on here, right now? Two things I want to say about that also. Remember, I said, I don't know if I said it, but there shouldn't be a sense of expectation of what you're supposed to have. But we may find ourselves uncontrollably having expectations. Okay, so if there is an experience of expectation taking place that is coloring the experience, if you find there's an experience taking place where there's a sense of prejudice in the observation, you observing the observation, that you bring into the experience a sense of this is what is supposed to be here, kind of thing, expectation, right? If you can find yourself, let me put that aside. If that's easy to do, then do it. But if the sense of expectation is so automatic, you find yourself not able to do anything with it, it just stays there, then that is a component for you to also observe. So try to not push away the sense of the expectation, but just notice, there's expectation also present in this search with me, okay? And never mind who's this me, okay? there's a sense of expectation also accompanying this experience, okay? So don't push it away, just allow it to accompany you, just let it be something that you're observing, all right? All right, so we're done with the body, which is very evident, very obvious. And then we go into more subtle things. The next subtle level of experience is what is referred to as the feeling tone. And I love the way Berzin phrases it. It says the level, he calls it the level of happiness or the level of unhappiness. Okay, and that's a very nice way of phrasing it. And this is something that is taking place all the time. In an experience, there's a level of happiness or a level of unhappiness. And you just gauge what is the level of happiness, what is the level of unhappiness. Okay. And that too, if you just allow yourself to observe it, you will notice here too, there is a complexity. It's not just a thing. And let the thing looking part of us, part of the mind, let it accompany you. Let it accompany this observation of the level of unhappiness or the level of happiness. So we can directly experience, so we can directly see, oh, complexity there here also. Okay? So that's the next level. And now we're going to go into more and more subtle. Okay. The next level is the capacity now to be able to distinguish experiences. That's color blue, that's color red, that's hot, that's cold, and the capacity to make distinction, that's also a quality of the experience, being able to make distinctions of what's going on. That's a quality of the experience of what's going on. Okay? And also this too is a complexity. It's not just a thing. And whichever one you take, it's not a thing. The capacity to distinguish is not a thing, and the things that are being distinguished is not a thing. Feeling is not a thing, and then when you go into the feeling itself, it's not a thing. It's a complexity. Okay? And the next level, which to me it should have been the last thing listed, but because of what's involved in there, that's what it's placed as the next level of subtlety. It's basically, I have to say the last one. The last one is consciousness, awareness, okay, or perception. And now what is it that we didn't mention? What is it that's going on in your experience that wasn't mentioned? The awareness of what's going on, being able to know what it is, discriminate it, being able, the feeling that you have about it, and then the material components of it. The material component of it, what is the physical reaction, what's the color, what's the shape, that's the physical thing. And being able to make that distinction, be able to make this, able to discriminate these kinds of things. Okay, and the general awareness of all these things. So that's what's happening in an experience, in whatever the experience is. These are a combination of these experiences are present. Okay. Now, what else is going on? There are many other things going on. There's awareness of time. So time itself, what is it? There's an awareness of perhaps of a different kind of level of you could say focus or level of distraction. What are these things? And what we consider emotions, anger, love, jealousy, anxiety, perception of beauty, or these are also part of the experience. So all these things which are not talked about, which were not distinct, which were not extracted from experience as distinct categories, now all these things fall into just one of the aggregates, and that's the aggregate that has so many different translations that it's confusing to try to find one. They call basically things which are part of our experience that are non-static, the part of our experience that are constantly evolving, constantly changing. They have that degree of complexity. Okay, they're made up of things, other things other things other than what was mentioned that are also made up of things. Like time is made up of discrete seconds. Space is made up of different localities, location here, there, over there, things like that. Degrees of love, degrees of animosity, degrees of awe, and those kinds of things. And the capacity to do things, right? Focus, not focus, distraction. So all these, because they sort of play, they do play a role in all these play their role in the experience that we have, that we're calling this is the experience, in which we are therefore saying this is reality. They're all playing their role, but the other four that I mentioned, they are very influential in determining the experience. Now, all the other things that make up the experience, they're not as powerful as the other four. That's why they sort of lump into one category. Now, for you, for example, you might you may have 7 things. When you look at your experiences, you may categorize them into 7 categories. You may categorize them into 3. You may simply categorize them into 2, body and mind. These are the subjective things. These are the objective experience, part of the objective part of the experience. And then you see the complexity of the objective, the complexity of the subjective. Okay. So the main thing is to not scare your mind, which is already freaked out already, chasing, running away from complexity, and telling it, hey, there's only 2 things here. Let's look at it. Only 2 things. Okay, I promise you. We're looking at only 2 things. Okay, the body and the mind. That's all. And it comes in thinking that a body is one thing, mind is one thing. It's comfortable. It sits down. It's looking at body. And as it looks at body, whatever ideas, fantasies it had about body, it is starting to discover, oh, I'm not seeing them here. And in the beginning of not seeing them there might be a sense of, depending on what, if you're expecting terror and you're not, and it's not being validated, then the sense of terror may begin to be lessened. But if there was a sense of expectation of something grand, and you're not encountering it, then there might be a fear. So there is in the allowing yourself to simply observe exactly what is taking place. When we are disassociating ourselves, begin the process of disassociating, of letting go of our fantasies of what we are expecting, there will be some extreme emotion, either the extreme emotion of awe or the extreme emotion of fear. And understand that this is just part of the experience. And to even have a sense, as you observe these extreme emotional reactions, to have almost a separate disconnect from them and have a sense, okay, I'm on the right path. And as you are experiencing the terror, as you're experiencing the elation, do not, of course, the mind will immediately associate, oh, this is me, this great fear is me, or this great terror is me, or this great elation is me, making the same mistake that it was making before. But it's just habit, okay? So just understand, have a sense of joy knowing that some letting go has actually taken place. That's why this extreme reaction is now being experienced. Now, to get to, I hope I get there. Yeah, we get there. To get to one of the questions that came up about the 5 aggregates is in a sense of, I sort of mentioned it already, but we're gonna go deeper into it, is in the sense that to get to reality, we have to go through the gate, the aggregates, our experiences. I'm gonna call it the different components of our experiences now, rather than just aggregates. Okay, the different components of our experiences. These are the gateways to get to reality. Right? Now, remember, what is reality about? The reality of what? The reality of my experiences. That's whose or what's reality that we are seeking. So it can't be the reality that we are seeking can't be something outside of the very experience that we are undergoing. Okay, so to put it in a way that some of you may be familiar with, you cannot experience what is referred to as ultimate nature of reality, emptiness, or to put it in a theistic way, there is no encountering the divine outside of your own experience. Okay. There is no encountering ultimate reality, emptiness, outside of the very experiences that you're having. It is the exact experience that you're having that is the gateway to that experience, to that direct experience. Okay. So whenever you are deeply aware, especially aware of things that are going on, no matter what it is, no matter how we may categorize it, whether it's categorize it as painful or unpainful, okay, painful or pleasant. You have understand that this is an opportunity to get to what you might call the divine. This is an opportunity for you to get to the ultimate nature of reality. This is an opportunity for us to get to what we might call nirvana. We cannot get to nirvana outside these very components of our being, these very components of our experiences. There is no nirvana outside, beyond, without them. It is through them that we gain nirvana, that we gain the glimpse of the divine, that we gain enlightenment, that we gain a glimpse at the direct perception of the true nature of reality. So these components, these heaps, these collections, these categories of these different components that we categorize our experiences. There will not be a time as you continue to exist when there will not be these categories of experiences. Okay. What we now experience as body or form, the reason that we experience it the reason that we experience it this way is because, one, we are running away from what it is. Two, because we are running away from what it is, we've created these fantasies about what it's supposed to be. We're not really looking at it. But when we begin to really look at it, we begin to actually, okay, this is what's actually taking place. Not fantasizing what it should be or what it should not be, but what's actually there. This very form, instead of being an experience, an experience that is created by our misunderstanding, our fear, and our running away from reality. And this very thing that is scaring us, because we want permanence, we want independence, because we want a meaning that is universal, and it scares us, and then we run away from it. And yet, this very thing that is scaring us, the fear, is fabricated. That's the first thing we discover when we just look at it. And yet, this very thing that at first was very fearful to look at, by sitting with it, eventually become the gateway where we have a deep awareness of all things, a deep connection to all things. We begin that sense of disconnect that we experience, that we want to distance ourselves from. We begin through this very body, which appears to be isolated, which appears to be on its own somewhere, and could be that we want to, which seems to be the thing that is causing us to experience isolation. It is the very gate to experience connection. Okay. And each one of these 5 categories of things, each of them, again, when we sit with them, allow their reality or put it in a different way, allow the ultimate nature to be directly experienced. Allow, that is, see them for what they actually are. Allow for the divine nature to be experienced. They themselves become transformed into different ways, different experiences. So the body, which gives us the terror of isolation, is actually the gateway to connection, to directly experience connection. Feelings, which seems to be the gateway for experiencing selfish ego and pain, becomes the gateway to experience a sense of connection, a sense of being able to see, not only are we connected, but to see the fabric that connects all of us, that connects all reality. In the same where being able to, that very faculty that allows us, unfortunately in the beginning, the way we use it, because it is driven by fear, because it is driven by a misunderstanding, that makes us say, oh, I should have this, I should not have that. That's the thing I should be attached to. That's the thing I should run away from. That's what we are using, this incredible, beautiful faculty of being able to discriminate. And that's all that. And now, when we just sit with it and seeing it for what it is, without falling in, without it being driven by the fantasy of what it's supposed to be, but rather for what is actually present, then it transforms into just imagine being able to have an experience of oneness, and yet at the same time, where each individual is distinguished, where their individuality is honored, and yet at the same time, seeing their oneness. So that's what this discrimination allows us to experience. So even like some people may say, well, you know, when you become enlightened, it's like you go into almost like into a soup, not an ocean. You go into a soup where, you know, the carrot, you can't see the carrot anymore, you can't see the celery anymore. Everything has been, it's like you know, what do you call that soup? It's like you blend everything together, okay? Like a pea soup. It's very delicious, by the way. Like it becomes something like that, where all these things.
A stew. You're thinking of a stew.
Yes, a stew. Thank you. Where you can't quite distinguish the things anymore. Okay, and some people are terrified of that. I'm terrified of that. Some people look at that as something, oh, that's wonderful, because they see their individuality has been a source of pain, and they don't want that pain to continue. They want to become a stew. They want to be part of a stew.
Puree.
Okay?
Puree.
Puree. There it is. Thank you. Yes. Okay. So it's not a puree. It's not a stew. Okay. What we end up with at this kind of discrimination, also, although you see the oneness that we all share, this thing that connects all of us, and yet we also able to see the distinction between us. Oh, that's Buddha Miriam, that's Buddha Erica, that's Buddha Isaac, that's Buddha Brian. Even though they're all Buddhas, they all share this oneness, and yet you're able to make they don't lose their distinctiveness. There's something distinct about them. Okay, that's the discrimination. Okay, and the next one is very interesting. So all these things that sort of jumble up into one. The experience of time, the experience of location, the the experience of the idea of I have this certain age, or the experience of these kinds of different kinds of emotions. There's within them a capacity to do, a capacity to make things happen. Okay, that's their main. That's the main thing the main distinction of that pile, the capacity to make things happen. Okay, so this capacity to make things happen now transforms. So interestingly, there is sometimes, because of depression, we feel that we lack the capacity to make things happen. This very experience that I lack the capacity to make things happen is actually something within me that's making this happen. Okay. So it is still the capacity to make things happen, this capacity to do, capacity to initiate, that is at the fundamental level, even though what it creates is the sense of I'm not able to do anything. Okay, so that capacity, stripped away from fear, stripped away from fantasy of what it's supposed to be, transforms into now this sense of spontaneity, the sense of never again experiencing a state of mind where you're lost as to what to do. Because you're so in tune with reality, you're no longer looking at reality with fantasy. You're no longer imposing nature onto your experiencing. You're allowing them to be, so that connects you to their mechanics, so to speak. And because of that, that capacity to do connects you to whatever that needs to be done. You immediately are connected to the means, the power, the resources of being able to accomplish it. Okay. And the last one is consciousness or perception. At first, with fear, with misunderstanding, consciousness is experienced as very limited, where we are able, even though when we leave consciousness alone, there's a universality to it. There's a sense of awareness that is all embracing about it. But because of the habit of running away, because of the habit of imposing nature onto it, we experience it as fragmented. We experience it as sometimes dulling, sometimes lacking luster, vibrancy. Okay. But when we just look at it, even though it's and this is an experience to have when you are meditating. Even when you are meditating and you're experiencing a darkness in your meditation, understand this darkness is actually a kind of light. Just have that attitude, just have that sort of perspective about it, okay? And that itself will allow you to, even though you may be perceiving a sense of darkness of the mind, that connects you to a kind of light that is behind us. It's like, you could say, the reason, it's like in the Shurangama Sutra, there's an example where the Buddha asked one of his disciples, close your eyes. And the disciple closes his eyes, and the Buddha asked him, what do you see? And he said, no, I don't see anything. And the Buddha said, no, you're lying. You are seeing nothing. You're seeing the back of your eyelids. You're still seeing, even though there's nothing appearing, you're still seeing. So the same kind of thing, even though there's a sense of darkness appearing in the mind, don't identify with it, but rather understand it. I am still perceiving, and the very act, the very function of perceiving is a kind of luminosity. is the kind of flashing light into something. So you're flashing the light of your awareness into something that is a condition of darkness. The darkness is not your consciousness. Okay, so it's identifying with it that gives us that sense of my consciousness is dark, rather than I am perceiving darkness, a sense of darkness. Okay, so this light of awareness is now when we allow ourselves to just witness it by looking at the darkness that may be appearing, the confusion that may be appearing, without identifying with the confusion, without identifying with the darkness. We allow ourselves to now go into the space that is allowing the perception to take place, and that space is bright, luminosity, endless, all-embracing. Okay, and that's what that aspect transforms into by looking into it. So these experiences continue; they don't end. These five parts of us don't just stop and then we're enlightened, but rather they are transformed. That you could say their pure essence is now extracted from delusion, from confusion, extracted from fear. Okay. And because of that, these very things continue to be experiences, but no longer attached, no longer married to fear, no longer married to fantasy. And because we allow ourselves to see exactly what is taking place when we say I, then we come to fulfill, in a sense, that wish that we had about continuing. But we now understand continuation to be something completely different. It's not a thing moving through space and time, but rather a constant movement. It's the very dance of spontaneity continuing endlessly. Isn't that a better thing to identify with than a static pose? All right, okay, good. 9:02. Now it's time to ask questions, just in case there was something that I didn't mention. Okay, you can ask your questions now. Anything I said that was confusing?
Phuntsok, can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
Thank you so much for teaching. Please stay forever. I'm trying to, the running away, the use of that language of our propensity to run away from fear. I'm not sure if that language is landing. I was trying to look for examples of how that works, because obviously I'm not physically running, but how does my mind move away from an experience? How does it respond to experience? And so my question is a little bit to describe running away again. Yeah, and then the other part of my, thank you, that's running away, yeah.
Okay. Running away. Whenever there's an experience taking place, whether the experience is pleasant or unpleasant, and we either superimpose on the experience something other than what is actually taking place. And one way of understanding it is someone glimpsing at something for the first time, not because of intuition or something like that, but saying, oh, I know what it is. And they're no longer looking at the thing, and they're now they're just in their mind into what the thing is, explaining what the thing is. And what they're explaining is simply what's in their mind. They're not describing what they're observing anymore. So that's a sense of running away.
So a pure misconception?
What was that?
Like misconception, like you are seeing the red pen and you're seeing it something else, like you're not seeing it for what it is.
Yeah, not seeing it for what it is. And not only are you not seeing it for what it is, but you keep saying it, this is what it is. So that's more of that. That's one level of running away from it. The other level of running away from it is you already made up your mind as to what the experience is without looking at it. And you already said it's something to fear, whatever is fearful for you about the experience. And you're looking away. You're looking away from it to explain it. Let me see. Okay, you're involved in an argument with someone. It wasn't an argument in the beginning. It was a conversation. The start of all arguments. You were just having a conversation with someone, and the person says something, and you're triggered by what they say. You don't know why you're triggered, but you're triggered. But instead of looking at as the very experience of being triggered itself, you just go into the what do you call the trajectory of being triggered. You just allow yourself to just go in the direction of being triggered, where the triggering seems to be responding to what the person is saying, but it's actually running away from the fact that you're triggered. If I could think of I mean, it's more like a general example, a more specific example. I identify myself as a loving person, okay? I'm a loving person without really looking at myself, without really looking as to what is a loving person anyway, right? I just identify myself as a loving person. I'm having a wonderful conversation with someone, and someone points to something that shows me not being loving, right? And the way I respond to it, which is running away, is now start attacking the person. How dare you call me a not loving person? In whatever ways that is an expression of that, rather than, I'm not being perceived the way I thought I am. And why am I triggered? If I am a loving person and the person doesn't see me as loving, why is it I'm triggered by not being identified as a loving person? See, there's something else there. There's a reality that I'm not allowing myself to see, that I'm sitting with. And then being triggered is a wonderful opportunity to know what it is. But getting involved into an argument, why are you calling me not loving? Can't you see this and that, I mean, this and that, this and that. That's running away. That's another example. I hope that helps with that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Someone else?
Hey, Phuntsok.
Yes. Hey,
I've got a question. I'm good, thanks. Hi from South Africa, everyone. My question is around investigating a specific aggregate. And I guess it's around like trying to see it for what it really is.
Mm-hmm.
How do you discriminate between whether you're trying to see it for what it really is or whether you're just giving into it again? Which might be a habit that you have. For example, like maybe you have a habit of complaining a lot, and you want to see that for what it really is, but you're not sure if you're just getting into the habit again. How do you develop that kind of awareness?
Oh yeah, nice. Yeah. Now, this is somewhat connected to Miriam's question about running away to some degree. Sometimes running away looks like it's actually looking at the thing. But what it's actually looking at is basically rewinding its own fantasy rather than actually looking at the experience. When, if that is part of the actual experience, the first thing to acknowledge is that, look at me, I'm rewinding my own fantasy about the experience. That's one thing that you can acknowledge. And when you acknowledge that, say, okay, now you acknowledge what's happening in the sense of, I am rewinding my own fantasy about this experience, which ends up complaining, right? Which end up with complaining. And once you acknowledge this is what's actually taking place, and now this layer of rewinding the same thing over, rewinding your fantasy, now you can lift it and you can have glimpse into what's happening. And one thing to do, I mean, one of the reasons for questioning, am I looking at what's happening? Am I doing this properly? Am I properly discriminating? Is where am I after this observation? Am I more attached? Am I, what is my experience to the, what is my emotional experience to the experience? Is it an experience where you could say my afflictions have increased or stayed the same? Or do I seem to be reaching a point where some sort of breakthrough is about to take place? Either my worldview is about to collapse, which can be fearful, can be scary, which is good. Or it could be a sense of indifference, where you're sort of like entering into a neutral territory for some kind of a neutral territory. Okay? So these are kind of experience, and you look at these experiences to sort of discriminate whether, am I just rewinding my fantasy, or am I really looking at what's taking place? And if I'm just rewinding my fantasy, then what I have to ask is, you can ask myself, why am I doing that? What safety do I feel I'm going to get by rewinding this fantasy? And allow yourself to now, allow your mind to sort of reveal to you, perhaps the reason that you're rewinding it, there might be something right there. So look at the habit of rewinding, playing over and over again the fantasy of what is supposed to be. Look at that itself as something that is happening, and that will lead you into the reality of what is, in the sense of what could have triggered you. Perhaps you're looking for safety, and there might be a sense of safety in that. There might be a sense of, this is my identity and I don't know anything else. And there's a sense of comfort in that. Even though it's a false sense of comfort, it's a false sense of safety. That's why it's uncomfortable, because it's not the nature that you're really, that's at the very fundamental, very foundation of the experience. That's not what we have touched. When we touch the fundamental nature, there will be the experience of freedom, of free. There'll be the experience of oh yeah, this is a body and it changes. It's not me that is changing, that's the body changing. And there is the sense of fear that is connected with what we are observing goes away when we are allowing the reality to set in, because there's something interesting enough, something fundamentally stable and secure when we are approaching reality for what it is. Okay, I hope that wasn't too long of an answer to your question. Okay, thank you. Hey, hey.
Hey, Phuntsok. I feel like piggybacking off of the last question, there's something you said maybe a week or 2 weeks ago about like the identity as a construct, and that like, I think you said something that like the goal is not to pull off the false reality and reveal the true reality, but to recognize that the false reality covering is a construct, and then the reality below that is a construct, and that all or not reality but the self, I think you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I'm wondering, is that like reciprocal? Is that true of our experience of reality as well, that like it's fundamentally a construct, and that like the goal of trying to experience real reality is to both experience it as a construct but also like dive into the believing it as reality? Does that make any sense?
Yes, yes. It's the fear and the running away is, it's like we've made up our minds as to what reality is supposed to be. And what we made up our mind is that it is not a construct. It's not just an interconnection. It's not just an interrelating that is taking place. It's actually discrete things taking place. That's how we've made up our minds already. And when we are looking for reality and there's some level of sincerity involved, accompanying that search is our already prejudiced idea as to what it's supposed to be. That is, we are going to find finally that that unit. We are finally going to find that isolate, that thing that is not interrelated. We are going to find it, and that's something that is accompanying our search for what is real. But what we keep encountering is interrelatedness. What we keep encountering is constructs that is interrelatedness. That's what we keep encountering. And eventually, what we have to do is to become at ease with construct. Construct is not a villain. Construct is not a demon that we should be afraid of, but rather the very reality that we are experiencing, that's what it is. That's what it's always been, construct, interrelatedness. And the search for something that is not that is some unique, distinct, isolate, that's a fantasy. It never existed, never will we ever encounter it. And at first, it is in the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras, it is, this experience is called developing the great patience. The great patience in the sense of, or the great forbearance. That is, we finally are coming into terms with, it's never not a construct. It's always a construct. We'll never have an experience that is not a complexity. Whether that experience is me, whether that experience is the world, however, whatever it is that we identify as an experience, that experience is because of interrelatedness. That's what reality has always been. That's what it always will be. When we are able to be, my teacher would say, when we become patient with that, when we patient it, then you could say we come to terms with reality. And at first, the sadness, the sense of despondency that we may experience at first is just the old grasping is leaving, and we are in somewhat of a intermediate state where we are not in reality, true reality yet, and yet we're still somewhat in unreality, the unreal. We haven't fully entered the real yet. We are still in the unreality. There's unreality, meaning the fantasy that we have about what reality is supposed to be. Yeah. So there's never any experience that is not mere construct, and that is reality. And when we come to terms with that, it's not some boring thing.
It seems like the search for like an objective reality is almost like a search for a reality that doesn't include like the subjectivity, you know, that it's like what would the world be like if I wasn't involved? And the world refuses to allow you to not be involved. It demands your participation.
Yeah. Because that's what it's always been. There wasn't a time when it wasn't that, and then somehow it became that, and then we're looking for it to return to that again. Thank you. Thank you for that question.
Phuntsok, it's so good to see you.
Oh, look at you.
Oh,
How are you?
I'm doing well. And so good to see fellow classmates from the past.
Yeah.
Brian somewhere in there. So good to see you all.
You too.
So really, I thank you for your teachings, and it's a delight to just have you back in front of me somehow, and in the magical appearance that it is. And I did want to follow up with hopefully quick question, but I don't know, it might be take some unpacking. But tying in things that you said, it really resonated. This kind of like it's never been something else is really a kind of I felt like a bubble of fear just liberate, and that fear is really, it seems like behind every stage of investigation there seems to be some layer of fear. So that's one question, is the fear is, I guess, the letting go of our concepts and structures feels like it's going to destroy us. Mm-hmm. And then I find myself, well, let's look at the fear and just acknowledge that, and it kind of dissolves pretty quickly. And I've been told that that's actually kind of a spiritual bypass. And so I'm wondering, like this, it feels like not running away, but spiritual bypass is a kind of running away. So I'm wondering if can you address that question in terms of what is spiritual bypass versus running away, when it feels like I'm actually kind of going straight to the healing source?
Yeah. Okay. Yes. I mean, the term spiritual bypass is quite a modern term. There may not be a specific, there may not be a one school explanation of what it is, but the way we sort of generally understand it is using you could say the science or the terminology, or appearing to use the science, appearing to use the technology, appearing to use the terminologies of transformation, spiritual transformation, where we are using them to basically perpetuate our trauma. Okay, so that would be spiritual bypassing, right? Like underneath there is fear, is something that is very universal that we can easily explain. Underneath there's fear, and then we are appearing to be compassionate, but what's really driving us is fear. But we keep responding to we keep identifying it as compassion rather than seeing it for the fear that it is. Okay, so that's spiritual bypassing. And since fear is one of the things that the exact example you're talking about is fear, terror, love, ecstasy, boredom, darkness, confusion, clarity. All these are experiences. All these are experiences. And if they are taking place, and as they are taking place, we are looking at them. Not spiritual bypassing would be immediately saying, oh, this is what this is, rather than looking at it for what it is actually, for what it actually is, right? Let's say at the level of biology, for example, if you're looking at it with the microscope of biology, you say, oh, there's this chemical, there's that chemical, there's this communication going on. So that's what you're seeing. And what is it that why are you seeing that? Because you're looking at, there's fear present, and you're looking at what is actually happening that's making us say fear, right? But spiritual bypassing would be, there's fear, and you turn away from the fear, and you're looking at what your idea of what the fear is supposed to be. And
or immediately saying, I'm going to have compassion for myself in this fear situation, and then you go into this compassion mode, as opposed to directing your attention to the sensation of the fear.
Yeah. Directing your attention to the very sensation. What actually is happening that I'm calling fear? What's actually happening? What's happening to my body? What's happening to my mind? What are the other aggregates doing that's making me say there's now fear? And that's not, that's what you're doing is using an opportunity to get to the divine.
Mm-hmm.
To put it in one way.
Okay.
Because
so the spiritual tool that we're learning in terms of really looking at things nakedly.
Yeah.
Even though it's a spiritual tool, that's not spiritual bypass.
No. That's not spiritual bypassing at all. No. As a matter of fact, you could say that is the very crux of spiritual progress, is to look at it is stated that the main reason we're in trouble is because we refuse to look at reality. That's the main problem. That's the main reason for our troubles. That's the main reason that we are in samsara. We refuse to look at reality. And the way out of samsara is not thinking that what we are seeing is samsara and we have to look for nirvana somewhere else. It is in the very experience that we are now having as samsara that we have to go deep into, and then we will get to nirvana. And fear is what is present. That's the thing to look into to get to nirvana.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that we have to conjure fear to get to nirvana. If there is no fear and then you're conjuring it, thinking that would be a kind of spiritual bypassing. That's not what's present. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I like the beard.
Thanks. Hello, yes.
Hi, Phuntsok.
Hi.
Hi, my name's Jane. Thank you so much. And it's been really resonating with me during this talk, speaking about, of course, that it's the very being in the reality, whatever that experience might be, that is the reality we're looking for to experience, I guess. And when you spoke about the great forbearance, or the great patience, I guess I was just wanting to clarify if that is, it's just that constantly showing up to look at, either if it's great fear that we are experiencing, or or what we're calling great fear or great awe,
Mhm.
that forbearance is just that showing up over and over again and again.
Yes. Yes. That's a nice term. I like that, showing up. Yeah. There are times when the experience of looking at what is may be overwhelming because it might be overwhelmingly unpleasant. But that's not the only level of experience when you're looking at something bare, when you're looking barely at something. That's not the only experience that to be expected. Sometimes thinking that I will encounter some monster that will terrorize me, and because of that we don't allow ourselves to look as deeply as we can because of we are afraid that we'll not be able to bear that experience. But everything in its time. Do things according to the measure that you can. If what is actually taking place is, even though technically speaking, no matter how terrifying it is, if you are able to really stay and go deep into it, you will eventually come out the other side and meet with the divine, or meet with truth and freedom. But if it's truly, the experience is truly unbearableness, then we have to say that's the reality. This is unbearable, and all the conditions for reality of unbearableness are present. So I have to respect that. So I have to take a step back. And you don't want to come out of an experience where you're driven away from it, from fear. You always want to come out of an experience mindfully, consciously. Oh, that was a bit too much, but I took myself out of it. I wasn't pushed out of it. I took myself out of it. I will strengthen myself so that I can be able to bear it next time. And the great forbearance, it's called a great forbearance because eventually, yes, we will see our reality completely collapse. And immediately after that great thing, there's great freedom, great joy. Just remind yourself of that.
Where does the root of that fear that we're going to get obliterated come from? Is it more of a biological thing, or is it identifying with like being an individual person that could be the root of that fear, that by letting go of constructs or letting go of anything really, that we're going to just suddenly have the experience of not existing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The only answer is not a answer pointing to an absolute, okay, this is the starting point, but rather it is conditioning over time that perhaps there was a tiny little seed of possibility of annihilation because of some misunderstanding, and it validated in its own fantasy, validated that seed, and it became bigger and bigger until it became a great terror that is propelling us. And what is propelling us is because we feel that in order for us not to be in order for us not to experience obliteration, we have to be something that is unchanging. And where did that come from? Misunderstanding our experience of reality made us draw that conclusion. And because we accept this conclusion as being absolute, it creates this terror within us. And it's because we are trying to avoid that terror. That's why we perpetuate this cycle the way we are perpetuating it, because that's what's driving this kind of experience where instead of 5 blissful experiences of reality, we're having 5 contaminated, messed up, confused categories of experience of reality.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I think it's about that time for us to do the closing meditation. Very happy to see all of you, old faces, new faces, very old faces. I'm not saying that you're old, I don't know, from a long time ago. Very happy to see you guys. So we're going to do a meditation where we are simply going to connect, feel our connection, and stay that way. Excuse me. Okay, all right, yeah. Right. So this is the meditation we've been doing, and we'll do it. Let me remind you. So first, remember how it felt when you were meditating, and let that very recollection reconnect you to the experience of the meditation. Remember how it felt in the body, and begin to taste it again, rejoice. Remember how the breath behaved when you were in meditation, re-experience it again, rejoice. Remember how it felt in the mind. Remember it, feel it again, taste it again, rejoice. And as you begin to taste the meditative state again, let's recommit ourselves to fully enter it with a nice deep breath. And when you do the exhalation, it's almost as if you're diving, that is completely surrender to the experience without judging it, without expectation. So gently through the nose, breathe in. And through the mouth, just let go. Let go, let go, let go. Feel yourself going deeper into the calm, rejoice. Feel yourself going deeper into the pleasantness, rejoice. Experience the clarity, the radiance through the inner sensations, deepening, rejoice. Now, whatever is us, have a sense of it, have a sense of connection to it. And have a sense of all of us in a circle. And keep feeling that sense of us, that sense of us. And in the very center of this circle, begin to feel a bright presence. It is the collective us. Although, just like someone from outside can say, oh, look at them, as they look pointing to a thing, we have a sense of that a thing, and we have a knowledge of that a thing being us, individually contributing to create this us. And this us is appearing in the midst of our circle as this brilliant presence. And we're connected to this brilliant presence with a beam of light coming from our hearts, connecting to its heart. So our individuality gives it energy, and collectively it gives each of us energy. It's an exchange. It exists because of us, and we exist because of it. And continue to focus on that center, collective us, not afraid of losing your individuality. And that bright presence in the center begin to expand, becoming brighter and brighter, expanding, becoming brighter and brighter, expanding. The more it expands, the brighter it becomes, the more we relax, the more we surrender, until it expands to include all of us into it. And our individuality, as far as appearance is concerned, is lost in its oneness appearance. And it continues to grow in its purity, in its light, now including not only us, but it includes the environment that we are in, it includes the neighborhood that we are in, it includes all life, eventually encircling and absorbing the entire earth. Let it continue as far as you can make it, the entire solar system, the Milky Way, the entire universe, wherever you can sincerely feel a sense of connection. And yet in that great sense of oneness, our individuality is respected. We are in this marvelous mystery. We are one, and yet we are many. So we are not one, we are not many. We are this beautiful mystery. And in the same way you feel about the oneness of your components, you feel the same way about the oneness that is all of us. And feel the peace, feel the joy, rejoice, radiating from that us. And keeping that sense of oneness, now it shrinks back slowly, allowing the individual appearances to appear again until it's just one us. And then it shrinks again, our individual appearances appear again, and it appears in the center. And that line of connection, of light connecting us to it, continues. And there's a memory of being that one, and at the same time, us being that one, which is a mystery. And there's no need to, it's not a mystery that demands to be solved, but to be appreciated. As that. And with that appreciation, now we can live the appearance of individuality without it being a delusion. And that center being splits into light and dissolves into each one of us. And individually, we maintain individuality, and at the same time, we are that one being. We are us. It's the beautiful mystery of it. Having no limits to oneness or multitude. Get ready to come out of the meditation. Feel what you might call the signature of your meditation, its power. Feel the merits of this together, gathering. Think of something that is of concern to you and dedicate the meditation to address that concern. Gyewa di kyo pun sunam yeshe zozo shin sunam yeshe lechungwe atamba guni doba. Feel yourself in a meditative state, rejoice. Seeing yourself in a meditative state, now there is something to actually arise out of. Make the intention to arise, take a nice deep breath, feel it, hear it, in through the nose, breathe in. Through the mouth, breathe out. And gently reconnect with your immediate surroundings through your sense of touch. Be aware of the temperature again, be aware of the feel of the clothing on you again. Reconnect with your sense of hearing, hear the different sounds, those close sounds, the four sounds. Again, reconnect with your sense of sight. Allow yourself to see colors again, see shapes again. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm so happy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.